What can be made of the current political and economic situation in Zimbabwe? Was yesterday's stay away an act of defiance against the Zimbabwean leadership? Why have law enforcers resorted to the use of force and a clampdown on social media? How much is the ban on importation of goods from South Africa affecting both economies? What time is it? It's question time. Welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. The economic situation in Zimbabwe has become a challenge not only to its citizens but to the broader South African development community region. Tensions have been brewing since last month when civil servants were not paid their salaries. Subsequently, Zimbabweans went to the streets in protest against economic hardship and the acute shortage of cash. In a twist of events, a ban on the importation of goods, including basic food items from South Africa, has been imposed by the Zimbabwean authorities. This is believed to have triggered the recent protests that culminated in yesterday's national strike. But is there political will to address the Zimbabwean crisis? We are live. If you can call us and air your views, the numbers to dial, as usual, 089-110-4210, our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. If you're calling us from outside the South African borders, +27891104210. My guest, Courage Mangwiro, is the Vice Chairperson of the ZANU-PF Youth League in South Africa, and Trust Ndlovu is the Chief Organizing Secretary of the MDC in South Africa. And joining us from our Durban studios is Israel Mkiza. He's a political economist. On the line, though, we have our correspondent, Shingai Nyoka, who is in Zimbabwe. Shingai, let us just firstly give us the latest. What has happened? The stay away, was it deemed successful?
Well, according to some quarters, it was deemed successful. The social media organizers posted a video message saying that congratulating Zimbabweans for staying away, but according to government, it wasn't such a success. Really, the issue here is, did people stay away because they felt intimidated and threatened, or did they stay away because they supported the cause? At this stage, it's very difficult to know. Many of the businesses shut down. Combis were very scarce, and so people weren't really able to go into town. But really, the effect of it was it had quite a huge impact. The Harare, which is normally bustling on a Wednesday, was very quiet, and most of the shops were closed, and apart from a few of the major supermarkets and food outlets. But what I must add, though, Mpho, is that the civil servants' strike continued to today. So even though the one-day national shutdown was yesterday, some of the civil servants were actually still away from work today.
But did it make the political point that it was aimed at?
Well, I think that still remains to be seen. The response that we've had from ZANU-PF, which had its Politburo meeting yesterday, is that they believe that there's a hidden hand of Western embassies as well as the opposition, which they believe are trying to effect regime change. That's what they say. On the other hand, we've had some ministers urging the public to be patient, urging civil servants to be patient, saying that they are still trying to address some of those issues around the state of the economy, around the state of the civil service salary. So really, I think President Mugabe will actually address a rally, an unrelated rally in Bindura yesterday, and we'll wait to hear what his tomorrow, and we'll wait to hear what his pronouncement will be.
Is the rally a ZANU-PF rally or a government rally?
It's very much a ZANU-PF rally in one of the party's strongholds. We really haven't had any indication about what issues he's likely to raise tomorrow, but there really is an expectation that he will really for the first time speak about the unrest that's prevailed over the last week.
Shingai Nyoka, thank you very much for your time there. Shingai Nyoka, our correspondent, talking to us live from Harare in Zimbabwe. In studio, I've got activists of both MDC and ZANU-PF. This should be a message to ZANU-PF government that the people are tired.
Well, not at all. This is a message to the world that the desperate opposition party and its allies, especially pockets of the European Union, are desperately trying to oust ZANU-PF from power, a legitimate government from power. So, having have lost multiple elections, having have seen propaganda as useless in Zimbabwe, they've resorted to these illegal protests and damage to property. So we are not worried at all as ZANU-PF. We were expecting that, and all measures were put in place in order to clamp down and nip it in the bud.
Why are you not clamping down on the crisis itself instead of the protesters?
We are looking at a magnitude of, problems that are being raised by people. And we as government have always emphasized on this point. People ought to follow proper procedures when they are making, issues beheaded by government.
Like
protesting is legal, but if it is done now without, a permission, with a lot of violence, then it becomes a problem. The people of Zimbabwe, and Paul, let me put this straight.
Let us be
people
honest,
of Zimbabwe
courage,
have all the right to protest.
We all know that the ZANU-PF government has had a way of clamping down on opposition, right? Well, for you to say that opposition or protest is allowed, it's really, you're being very much economical with the truth.
No, it is allowed. Let me remind you that 2 months ago, the MDC had its rally, which was just a pie in the sky that they called a star rally, that they were initially denied to hold by the police, but they went to court and they were given permission to do that, and they did it. It was within Zimbabwe. It was in Zimbabwe when it happened. So you cannot tell me that the opposition is being clamped down on. No, they're taking advantage, and now they've crossed the line. We are not going to tolerate any violent protests. We are not going to tolerate any unbecoming acts that put our country in a compromising situation. We are looking at a lot of investors wanting to come to Zimbabwe, flocking to Zimbabwe. But when they see this upheaval that is caused by some people with their own personal agendas, we will stop at nothing to stop it immediately, and we did it. Now, let me just quickly correct
which investors really
that,
want to come into a country where activists disappear without trace, where lawyers for human rights disappear without trace?
I will answer you. Let me quickly correct the statement that was initially made on on this show. Zimbabwe did not ban products from South Africa. It's incorrect. Zimbabwe has set a regulatory system, the SI number 64 of 2016, where we see regulation of products coming into Zimbabwe from outside the country, not only South Africa, but other countries within which we act in international economics. So let's not say we ban South African products. We want to protect our industries.
Hold it there. Itumeleng, you are in Pretoria very quickly.
Thank you very much, Mpo.
Yes.
Mr. Courage there, it's very much depressing. When Robert Mugabe was the darling of Britain, he was being praised all over the world, being the most intelligent president in the world. Right now, he's the friend of China. He wanted to change his own government to use yen, but he's not allowing black people from uniting and sharing products. And there, Mr. Courage is busy drilling MDC and talking about Europe. And he forgets that Mugabe was the friend of Europe. Now Mugabe is the friend of China. But Mugabe does not want his people to enjoy products from other countries. But he goes to Singapore, China for health, for food, for clothing. So Mr. Courage must not play the people. He must play the ball. The people in Zimbabwe are suffering. He must stop looking at MDC as a European puppet. While his leader was once a European puppet, right now he's a Chinese puppet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The MDC, what is your reaction when things are like this?
I'm very disappointed to hear a man like Courage speaking such, making such utterances, because he is supposed to be defending the people that are at the extreme end of brutal, excessive brutalism, that are oppressed, that are harassed by this very police, and that are harassed by the state authority. But to say the least, I think this is a result of many years of disagreements, of oppression, of bad, evil things that have been happening to the people of Zimbabwe. To point the MDC at this point, it shows that we are not being economic with the truth, like you said. Because there is now a collective, spontaneous response from the people of Zimbabwe to what is happening, to what the state is doing to its own citizens. Point number one, like he is saying, he is trying to deviate from the fact that the government has actually banned imports. That regulation he is talking about, it restricts people from buying things from abroad, from outside the country. And it allows so that they can buy from the shops, you know, the shops that they want people to buy from. They are mainly and predominantly owned by ZANU-PF.
Okay.
Secondly, most of the goods in those shops, they also come from outside.
Okay, hold
so
it
we
there.
have the rich people here getting goods at the expense of the poor.
Hold it there. Let's take Anonymous in the DRC. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, please. Yes, please. I would like just to talk about this guy of ZANU-PF there whom we are talking to.
Yes.
The thing which I wanted to say is, let him just explain to us, how can someone be a minister from 1980 up until 2016? Do you mean Zimbabwe is just being run by those few individuals and we don't have other people who can run Zimbabwe? The other thing is, as a Zimbabwean country, we have been quiet for so long. Look at this guy by the name Mangwiro. At his age, he must be thinking of what is going to happen to his kids when he grows up. But what is happening to him at the moment is now he doesn't have brains again. You know what I'm saying? I'm very sure I'm going to use this word. Tell Mangwiro Mfatanyoko. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Wow, that we didn't hear. But we're going to take a quick break. When we return, Mr. Mkhize is in Durban. Let's look at the economical impact of all what is happening there. The number to dial 089-110-4210 if you're outside the borders, 0027-89-110-4210. At question time 24 is our Twitter handle.
There is a sign for perfectionism. There's a sign for goosebumps. Something that symbolizes more performance. A sign for a special mindset. There is a sign for everything we stand for. Audi Sport, born on the track, built for the road. Join the League of Performance.
Unlock a whole new world of African hospitality. Experience world-class luxury, unparalleled adventure, royal banquets, wild safari, and intimate live music performances. Book your 3-day escape today. Brought to you by ESP Africa. Producers of the award-winning Cape Town International Jazz Festival. The Royal Escape Experience.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today, Courage Mangwiro, is the Vice Chairperson of the ZANU-PF Youth League in South Africa, and Trust Ndlovu is the Chief Organizing Secretary of the MDC in South Africa. And from our Durban studio, Israel Mkhize. I don't know, Israel, if you can hear me. Perhaps let's look at the economic impact. I don't think Israel can hear me at this point. But let's take Archie. Archie, you're calling us from Velcom.
Good afternoon, guys.
Yes.
The gentleman who courage, you know, the way, if you listen to him well, he's of the opinion that everybody around him is on a coma. He's only the guy who is aware of what is happening. I mean, for the last many years, the people of South Africa, the majority of South Africa, have been supporting Zimbabwe at 4 angles. But now it has become so worse that it is unfair. He is talking about the elections they have won. Which are elections? Yes, we know how they won, and we have supported them for a reason. But now it is getting unfair courage. Most of South African, black one especially, and progressive one, we cannot take it anymore. Stop it, you guys there.
Okay, Archie, thank you very much. Israel, the economic impact of, well, he says it's not a ban. The conditions that are prevailing, that the Zimbabweans cannot buy certain goods that are mainly not available in Zimbabwe or are available scarcely so, and very, very expensive.
The problem, Paul, is what we call in economics the negative multiplier effect. Because you can also have a positive multiplier effect in the economy. But Zimbabwe is suffering from the negative multiplier effect, which has 3 legs. You'd have to have good political plan, good financial plan, and good economic plan. It looks like the country focuses more, especially at leadership level, on the political plan, so to speak, the management of power and power brokerage. But on the financial side, which talks to your fiscal policy and your monetary policy, which are very, very critical instruments at this point in time, because you look at the state of the economy, you look at the disinvestment and the shying away of the private investors, you look at the banks being unable, for instance, to give credit because the money circulating in the economy has shrunk. So when you look at the inflation going up in very, very unmanageable way, the principles of inflation targeting are very weak. Hence, I'm saying that the negative multiplier, then it goes down to the question of demand and supply of goods at a macro level. I do not understand how, for instance, would there be a justification of ill discipline in terms of managing tariffs and cross-border supply of goods, because we all know that recently, as far as last year, the South African counterpart of our own president, they met, there were about 9 ministers who were present to sign treaties on cooperation in terms of water security, infrastructure security, as well as information sharing, even also to the services sector, sharing of instruments and tips there. So I don't know where would there be a problem, because we all know that even in SADC, there are corporations that guide the whole tariffs and duties on the borders. So it does not make sense to now hear of the things that we are seeing. But as far as the economy of Zimbabwe is concerned, again, you have to look at, have they developed new industries to absorb labor? Because what you have seen, obviously, in the past 18 months is that there's been over 100 jobs that have been shared by the formal sector, and where obviously that's going to hit on the GDP, because it's going to lower the demand side from domestic consumption. Okay. Once that is lowered from domestic consumption, obviously business confidence is going to go down, and business is going to close, and then it's going to have to shed more jobs. Okay. Then you have more people who are not active in the formal economy. Then they will obviously go to the borders and start to look. The biggest casualty on this are going to be the countries that are surrounding Zimbabwe, such as South Africa, Mozambique, Angola, and even on the north, which is Zambia. Okay. Then once that happens, you're going to obviously have to prepare for problems like xenophobic attacks, because people are going to say there is already economic congestion in our context. We cannot probably take more people from outside the border. And all right. Also the paperwork, the Department of Home Affairs. So it's creating a very, very lot of problems, this negative multiplier effect.
Eunice, you are in Pretoria.
Hello, Butimpo, how are you?
I'm well, thanks for the call.
Hey, Butimpo, this thing is Zimbabwe is giving us a lot of problems. Number one, when you look at a lot of areas like Mainland Mall, most of the workers there are from Zimbabwe. So they are taking the jobs of the people. I'm not talking from the xenophobic point of view. I'm talking about the factual point of view. Now, where must the South Africans go? They are not committed to resolving their own issues. And South Africa is giving them the soft spot. Yes, at first we were supposed to sympathize. But now, we have allowed it not to go on and on. They must solve their problems. Okay. Thank you, Butimpo.
Thank you very much. Courage. People are saying you must solve your problems, but let's look at, for instance, yesterday's stay away. It was not led by the MDC.
Yes, indeed, it was led by the MDC. MDC was a component of it. You have MDC, and like I said, we saw a hand of the West, and we're okay with it. But what we're saying is, to all Zimbabweans, let us not forget that there are proper channels that should be applied.
Which ones
when
are
people
those?
Want the simple and known ones, Mpo. You don't just get into the street and start protesting. No, you seek permission to do that so that you get security. MDC has done it before, and the Zimbabwe Republic Police was with them to protect them, to make sure that no one disturbs them from, protesting, and they did it. Now, the problem that we have is of people who now start burning infrastructure, like the Bait Bridge, issue,
yes,
where we had one of our very important warehouses burnt. I'm glad, the people were linked to that. Perpetrators were arrested and they were denied bail. And the law will deal with them.
Okay, hold it there. Sipho, you're in Mpumalanga. Yes.
Hello, Mpo, how are you?
I'm well.
I'm all right, man. You are speaking to Sipho.
Yes.
Mpo, I'm just looking at this guy called Courage.
Yes.
I mean, you keep on bringing this guy in your studio, and this guy is talking a lot of nonsense. I mean, we are looking at the government that cannot look after its own citizens. It's busy beating its own citizens. I mean, look at the people, how the police are beating the people, and that is the government. What is this guy saying to us?
Well, he's the representative here in South Africa, so we really are limited for choice. I mean, in terms of representatives of ZANU-PF. But yes, what do you say to the harassment that we are seeing on television?
You refer to it as harassment, but when we are talking about security, when somebody does something wrong and they are reprimanded from doing it, we in fact what is called minimum force.
But what is
and
minimum?
When that happens again,
courage.
When that happens again,
there's a picture here. There's a footage of a man who is pulled out of a shack here, right? And they just beat him up.
It's unfortunate, Mpo, that you have to appreciate that force is used if need be. It's unfortunate, but you know what is unfortunate also is that people don't seem to want to realize that these people who meet the ruthlessness at times of the police would have committed some serious offenses.
There's a man
blind
into
a blind eye to that. And I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not sorry.
Look
That's
at
what
that man. Look at that visual. How harmful is that guy?
It's a fair quid pro quo.
How harmful is that guy who is being who was pulled out of that?
It is a fair quid pro quo. If you could ask those police what transpired there, maybe you would understand where I'm coming from.
MDC sometime.
You know what? It's always he said that there are two issues that I want to clarify here. The first issue, he talks about MDC being in the forefront of organizing this stay away. This is just a clear admission that most of the people in Zimbabwe, they are no longer with ZANU-PF. The people of Zimbabwe have left ZANU-PF. So every ZANU-PF, when they see people protesting, everyone who is protesting or who is staying away, they always think these are MDC. Of course, the people of Zimbabwe have now shifted from supporting, they've long time shifted from supporting ZANU-PF. And secondly, the issue that he talks about, the Western being involved, the Western African involvement. You know, I can't stop from being surprised every time when ZANU-PF talks and blame and vilify the West for the problems they created for themselves. Recently, we had the Minister of Finance, Chinamasa, who is well known for castigating the West. Nicodemously went to UK, to Britain, with a begging bow. And it's ironic, it defies any logic that we can have the kind of government that have collapsed, that is, they run out of debt, they've run out of faith, they don't know what to do, they're just clueless.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but gentlemen, tatenda shukuru mwari wakatichengeta parundo rwendu kutosvika pano. That was question time. Goodbye.